on 95.3 FM in Windhoek, Desert Radio. The Bold Voice
is the frequency that you can tune into. Now, this morning, we are joined by Presidential Economic Advisor James Mnyupe in studio this morning. James, how are you?
How's it, guys? Thanks a lot for having me. I'm blessed, lucky to be here and in the company of Arlana and Joan Collins. I just learned to pronounce your names a few minutes ago.
You did well for first attempt.
I thought I'd practice on air just to make sure we're good.
No, you did perfectly well. Now, James, we're here to talk about something that's obviously been on the lips of everyone recently. The Institute for Public Policy Research, or IPPR, is questioning the transparency around the procurement process that resulted in a preferred bidder being named to implement a $143 billion green hydrogen project in the Geingob National Park. Now, last November, the government issued a notice of award stating its intention to appoint Hydrogen Energy as the preferred bidder to implement the project that has been touted as one of the cornerstones of Namibia's economic recovery. So I guess we'll start off with this. Of course, there have been, some concerns raised about the request for proposals for the Green Hydrogen Initiative. So just please tell us a bit about the process.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me, guys. And, it's good to be out here and engaging the Namibian public again on this issue. And we plan to keep on doing so. So keep the chair warm. I'll be back. But, I think this is obviously probably one of the most publicly spoken about endeavors, right? We launched this thing on HPP2 very publicly on the 18th of March. We went ahead and did a very sort of public launch of the RFP itself on the 3rd of August. Again, streaming live on the internet. And even as we were putting the documents together, we actually held various market sounding sessions. Hey, so we went out to the public and we said, we want to put out this particular RFP in this particular manner. What do you think of it? And we, there were times we had calls with like 100 people online from around the world. And the RFP that then got launched on the 3rd of September resembled a lot of what we wanted to do, but actually resembled a lot of what the market sort of responded, advised us to do as well. So, from our perspective, we really had thought, we were transparent, we had engaged the public, local, international. We made it very clear which part of the act we were sort of using to try and get these proposals. And then we started a whole new website. I mean, when's the last time you remember a government starting a website for a specific tender? So we did that. We did all this stuff on YouTube to make sure we're reaching the young folks as well and not just, like traditional newspaper adverts. And the process is still ongoing. And so, the IPPR's work, some of it's pretty good, and we're very happy to learn from them and from you as well. I mean, our Arlana here really cares about the environment, and she covers the environment in the Namibian. So we'd love to keep on working with the Namibian public to make the process better and for future RFPs as well to be even more robust. So we're very humbled by the feedback that we've gotten so far, and we're very happy to continue improving on it.
Then talk to us a little bit about the choice of Hyphen as the preferred bidder. Given that, as the IPPR report stated, it's a 6-month-old company with no track record. What made them the preferential choice?
Very, very, very good question, right? So let's think about Hyphen. Hyphen isn't a company that's existed for a long time. Hyphen is actually 2 companies, so it's a consortium, and they came together, and think about this, they came together specifically just to bid for this opportunity. So the underlying companies are, of course, Nicholas Holdings, which is a holdings company that has assets right across the continent. From, for example, train assets. They have their own Traction, which is one of the largest privately owned train companies in Africa, to real estate to others, right? So they're a multi-billion-dollar holding on their own. And then Enetrag is a German company that's been sort of specializing in renewable energy and synthetic fuels for decades, right? I think they built like their own first electrolyzer back in 2010 already, and it was sort of inaugurated by Angela Merkel. So they have a deep passion and expertise in synthetic fuels. And the two of them, instead of bidding individually, they said, let's come together, form a new company, and let's then put all of our resources together to try and take on, one of the biggest projects that probably of their lifetimes, and they've admitted that as well. So that's who they are, and just context as to, why when you look up Hyphen, it doesn't exist forever. It's because it's two separate companies. Why did they win? Again, I'll tell you, but also I'd really love to encourage the listeners to go to gh2namibia.com, right? gh2namibia.com. We've done a lot of work to put up this website. Go click on the videos link and go and watch the COP26 video, right? Because we speak there, again, to all Namibians, to everyone in the world, in a lot of detail about all of the criteria that we actually used to select the preferred bidder. Yeah, there were 4 key ones: business case, environmental use, social impact, and of course the financial part as well. And then we broke it down even into the subparts for those specific 4 sections. And the truth is, Hyphen just came out on top by actually quite a margin. It was 80-something% for their score. The next person was like mid to low 70s. So they outperformed the next peer by quite a bit. Some of the things that sort of made their bid stand out were the concession fees, for example, that they were willing to pay government. So the tender had 3 different fees that you had to articulate. One was a fee that you would pay during your feasibility studies. So ladies and gentlemen, if we do reach to, because remember, we're still actually in negotiations with this bidder, but if we do reach conclusion, their suggested fee for one of the blocks was like 3 million euros. Okay, so, and they got both blocks because they scored the highest in both blocks. So that's $100 million that they're willing to pay us just as they're doing their feasibility study. When they start construction, that ramps up to 160 million. And when they start actually operating, that's 8 million euros times 2, right? It's a lot of money. So that was one aspect. The other aspect was, of course, their deep expertise that just came through. They haven't dabbled in the technology. They've built it. They're operating it. And they had a very, very interesting vision of how to link South Africa and Namibia as well. But the other thing we did is, just like when you have elections, you have international observers. I mean, let's face it, no one in the Namibian government is a techno-economic specialist, right? So when a guy puts up a model and says, I can produce 2 terawatt hours of electricity at this rate because the solar capacity, factor utilization for solar is 30% on a rotating panel, and 50% capacity utilization with wind that is a turbine that's 120 meters high. I don't know what that is. I have a pretty good idea because I've now read up a lot about it, but I can't certify it. So we got the National Renewable Energy Lab, which is full of like really, really, hectic, geeky scientists that actually went and tested what they were saying, the mass almost of this whole project. And they tested whether the numbers added up for both of the, for all 3 of the bids that made it to the financial part. And then the European Union gave us support as well, and those specialists looked at both the qualitative as well as the technical aspects of the bids as well. And what was useful for us was, all 3 of those assessments were showing that these were the preferred bidders, and they gave specific reasons why. And the government was good enough to give those reasons to Hyphen, but also to give reasons to the guys who didn't make it where they could actually improve.
Yeah, I just want to bring in IPPR researcher and editor of Namibia Fact Check in here, Mr. Federico Links. Federico, good morning.
Good morning, John Collar.
How are you?
I'm good. How's it going?
Good. Listen, we were just speaking to James now, and he was telling us a bit about the bidding process. But we want to find out from your side, why exactly does IPPR question the Hyphen hydrogen energy bidding process?
Look, the Public Procurement Act was clearly used to award Hyphen this contract. And it's clear because the method that was used is the request for proposals, and the Act guides the use of or governs the use of this specific method. So when we went to check, because we monitor, sort of the governance and implementation of the Public Procurement Act. And I just want to say, I'm not here as Namibia Fact Check. I'm here as Procurement Tracker Namibia, because we track the implementation of the Public Procurement Act since April 2017 when it was implemented. So we looked at this request for proposal method and the specific procurement action, because this was touted as the largest tender ever in Namibia's history. So we just want to see how does this procurement action comply with the Public Procurement Act. And I don't know if you read the procurement tracker that we're talking about.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So there we state that, look, there's a transparency issue here. We need to know what happened here. There needs to be a report publicly available for the public to see. This is according to Public Procurement Act and its regulations. This method was used, and if you look at Section 27 in the Act, it says because the default is open advertised bidding, if you use another method, then you have to justify it in detail why you're using another method other than open advertised bidding. And so based on that, so the request for proposal method was used, which is also, sort of provisioned for in Section 27 of the Act. But you need to explain why. The Act is very clear on that. And then, of course, that information needs to be in the bid evaluation summary report, which has to be made publicly available, posted on the website of the contracting public entity, and a summary has to be published in a print media publication. It says so in the regulations very clearly. But these haven't, we don't have access to these reports 5 months later. So we don't know exactly, this is the question. Why was this? And we asked Mr. Mnyupe. We sent questions to Mr. Mnyupe in early March, and then follow-up questions in mid-March. And we asked, please, why was this method used, this specific method? And some other questions as well related to this procurement action. Because this information is supposed to be public available, but 5 months later, this information is still not available. Whereas the Act says 7 days after the award has been made, the information has to be published. So, the question is, I hear everything Mr. Mnyupe says. The question is, that information has to be in a report which is supposed to be publicly available.
Federico, I'll just cut you here and give James an opportunity to respond.
Yeah. Thanks, Federico. And again, I think you're doing fantastic work to champion transparency in Namibia, and I think we need to continue doing that. And thank you as well for telling us a little bit about where you think we could do better. The one thing one has to consider is, and we've said this publicly as well, is the award actually hasn't been finished, right? So they have been selected as a preferred bidder, and ongoing negotiations are currently taking place. And then after those negotiations, they will become the selected bidder. But I think, Mr. Federico is raising a much more profound sort of question, which is, adherence to the Public Procurement Act, and was there non-adherence to that, etc. And he's right. He did write to me twice, I think, and I apologize. I missed it. We had lots of other things that were in the inbox, and I missed it. But when I came back and I read this report, I reached out to him yesterday. I sent him the media release that we have responded with as well to the Namibian and to all the different newspapers. And in that media release, we have specified the legislative route we had taken, how we heard use the Nature Conservation Act to try and award this particular concession. The Minister of Environment, Fisheries, Forestry and Tourism awards various tourism concessions in the national parks. The Minister of Mines will award concessions. Fisheries will award concessions as well. And Section 64 of the Procurement Act that he's referring to deals with how that could be done, especially if the underlying regulations for awarding concessions are not yet drafted. And we've put all of that in the media release. I think the other thing that I just encourage, Mr. Federico and the listeners as well to consider, of course, is, there's legal form, which is super important as well, but there's also the substance of how it is that you conduct yourself. And I think the substance of the way the government has conducted itself has been one of a very transparent approach. We put everything out in the public. He was talking about public advertisement. We did put this out on the internet, on the media, in various, I think, written formats as well. It is definitely not a traditional tender. Again, we've never done anything like this before. And we do suspect that once we do conclude the whole process and we do have a selected bidder, in fact, there are new pieces of legislation that we're going to have to craft that will regulate synthetic fuels in Namibia. So as it was mentioned in HPP2, this is was and is a strategic bet, something that we are trying to learn along the way. But we did, as he's mentioned, we did do it in the spirit of the Public Procurement Act. Even though, from our appreciation of the law, concessions are actually exempt from the Public Procurement Act. And again, we've put that out in quite a bit of detail in the media release that we gave you, the Namibian, that we've given the New Era, the Republican, I think published it yesterday already. But we're not saying, this is it, it's the last of it, we're right and he's wrong. What we are saying is, as Namibians, we're all going to have to work together to ensure that we respect the importance of transparency, which is what really Federico is trying to say, and B, we move nimbly as a country to capture an opportunity that is evolving not just in Namibia but around the world extremely quickly. And as the government, we're saying, we appreciate the help and we need the help, right? From IPPR, from Marlano, who's going to be sort of an environmental journalist, from our capital markets, etc. Team Namibia really needs to arrive at the table and work together. So one of the things I can say to Federico is this will not be the last RFP that we put out in the Tsao Caib. So everything that he's telling us now that might be a shortcoming, we're going to use it to learn for the next RFP that we do put out. We do suspect, though, as those subsequent RFPs come out, we might actually have a whole a different piece of legislation that is governing that, because again, we've never done this before, but we did try to do it in a way that respects the spirit of the Public Procurement Act.
And I think one of the issues that came up with the RFP was that it was publicized under the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board and the Office of the President, but not the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, right? So just talk to us a little bit about why that was the choice, because isn't it normal practice that it would be under the responsible ministry?
100%. So, and that is a bit inaccurate, if I can say that, because if you do go onto gh2namibia.com and go under, I think there's a tab called publications or documents or something like that, we actually have the market sounding document that we published, right? Okay. That was saying to people around the world and in Namibia, hey, we're looking to do this, and this is a rationale of how we were looking to do it. And that document specifically tells you that it's actually the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism that is going to be awarding this concession in accordance with the Nature Conservation Act, Section 17(2)K, which specifically talks about, the minister being allowed to avail or to put up renewable energy resources to combat climate change, right? It specifically says that in there. And then the same legislation would actually allow the minister to put together a team, right, that can assist him in doing any of these concessions. And of course, look at what we're talking about: synthetic fuels, electrolyzers, ammonia synthesis, renewable energy, pipelines, transmission lines. This is new and fairly detailed and complex. And so, of course, government rallied together and we brought in the best of the best from various OMAs, whether it was Environment and Tourism, Mines and Energy, Office of the President, Ministry of Finance, Attorney General. All of us came together, selected a few people. We put up a green hydrogen technical committee that then was helping the Ministry of Environment and Tourism think about how could we actually do this in the South Cape. So NIPDB, given that they are an investment promotion agency, aka they're the ones that will interface with investors, was merely appointed as an agent or a representative, right, of government to interface with the investors. But the specific act and the specific sort of law specifically noted that it's only the Ministry of Environment that is empowered by the Nature Conservation Act. And again, that was spelled out in the document on gh2namibia.com, which I'll actually pull out for you guys as well.
All right. While you pull that up, Federico, we also just earlier discussed, I don't know if we had you on the line yet, but that the government opted to have appointed international experts from the European Union Global Technical Assistance Facility. Questions come up as to why using local experts to review all techno-economic aspects and qualitative submissions were not used. James, you already spoke to us on that, but Federico, from your end, as a researcher on procurement, does this follow procedure to opt to appoint international experts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the government can appoint the experts that it chooses to. I mean, I don't think there's anything that speaks to that in the Public Procurement Act. So, I mean, I think that would be fine. I just want to say, though, that regarding because I saw the statement, and I have to, I received the statement as well from the Mr. Mnyupe yesterday. But we missed each other. We were supposed to have a telephonic conversation, but we sort of missed each other in the afternoon a few times. But the legal opinion that we've gotten about that specific statement and how it pertains to this procurement action, there's actually nothing in those in the what was it, the National Parks policy and the Environment Act, Amendment Act that we looked at that says it supersedes the Public Procurement Act. And the sections that Mr. Mnyupe refers to just refers to the powers of the minister to award concessions. Now that says nothing about the Public Procurement Act. Public Procurement Act still governs the procurement of goods, services, and so on. The concession comes afterwards, after the bid has been awarded to whoever, Hyphen in this case. Then, according to the documents, then Hyphen has to get these various rights to operate in these in these parks in the south, in these protected areas. That's where the concession comes in, and the awarding of a concession to the successful bidder. So that's according to the legal opinion that we've gotten on this. So the procurement itself still falls under the Public Procurement Act, because a method that is governed by the Public Procurement Act was used, this request for proposal. So an award has been announced, and NPC Director General signed a contract with after the award was made in what was it? I think the end of the November, or early December, if I'm not mistaken. And so they, everything else that is now happening is happening after that award. So the provisions of the Public Procurement Act still apply. And I would like to encourage Mr. Mnyupe, please, please let us, the public, have access to this report, because it needs to be explained to us. And I came into this conversation, where he was talking about hyphen and its experience and so on. And I would like the report has to say clearly why the specific company was awarded this contract. What was the justification? And he was talking about its experience and Inatrag and Nicholas Holdings and so on. But there are a lot of questions here around, especially Nicholas Holdings. Not so much around Inatrag. But here's an offshore registered entity of which the ownership is opaque. We don't know who the beneficial owners are because of the secrecy surrounding its registration in one of these offshore secrecy havens. So, who is this company? Where is it coming from? And why? One of the questions we actually did ask was also around the due diligence that was done around, especially Nicholas Holdings, because we don't know who is behind this company. The question is, when we're awarding contracts of this nature, of this scale and scope, I think the attitude and the thinking should be to be as transparent and open as possible, and to have everything be above board, and all the people involved. There should not be questions about who they are, about their integrity, about their intentions, and that's exactly that's why we're questioning. We cannot start something of this nature, of this scope and scope off on a note where there are questions around how this happened, because this information is supposed to be public, or around the entities and officials involved here.
Yeah. Federico, sorry to cut you off there, but we are running out of time. James, we do have to end this segment right now, but I will give you 30 seconds to just say your piece, because I feel like you want to say something, but we do have to close off the conversation now.
No, thanks a lot for the conversation. I think there were just one or two things Federico said that I'd like him to just go and look into. One is that the NPC Director General has signed a contract with Hyphen. That's not the case, so he needs to look into that. And the second is that, we haven't procured anything yet. One. Two, we are looking to grant rights to perform a specific task. He should look at what I've put in the letter, right? That sort of speaks to the general exemption with regards to Section 64 of the Public Procurement Act. But again, I can talk to him about that in detail offline. So, but I agree to his with his general sentiments, right? Something this big, even small things. And I remember him speaking on YouTube 6 months ago saying that there has never been so much public information in between 2020 and 2021 about procurement. And he said the government is moving in the right general direction, right? And there's still shortcomings that we need to do better. And I embrace that. And I'm saying to him, let's sit down. Yesterday I called him a couple of times and I missed him. And he acknowledged that, and we want to talk to him, and we want to share with him in as much detail what we are doing, and not just him, but the general public, which is why I'm here at 7:30 in the morning. So nothing to hide. Again, he wants a report of the awarding of this tender. They've been chosen as a preferred bidder. All that means is we are now allowed to negotiate with them. There is a second preferred bidder, right? Because if negotiations with them fail, a second preferred bidder enters into negotiations. After those negotiations, there is an award. After the award, to do the concession and then possibly build this thing, of course there's a report that then puts out what was agreed, what are the terms, stuff like that. So it's a work in progress. He's coming at the right time with the right questions. Very happy to engage them. And of course, I'm very happy to be back here on Desert Radio, hanging out with you guys, telling the people what we are doing and how it is that we're trying to industrialize Namibia and get this economy going. It's a super important task. We can't do it alone. I need your help, Arlana. I'll need your help as well, Frederico. But thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this morning. That was Presidential Economic Advisor James Mnyupe, as well as IPPR researcher Federico Links, talking to us a little bit about the green hydrogen project.